It was supposed to be a birthday celebration. Balloons, cake, a slideshow of old photos. But in the middle of dinner, my cousin stood up, raised a glass, and said, "It's time for you to leave this house." In front of everyone, including my dying mother. Have you ever realized, too late, that the people you trust the most are the ones slowly erasing you? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled because I already had a plan. And by the time they figured it out, the house was gone. So were they. This isn't a revenge story. It's a survival blueprint. And I'm about to show you everything. The phone rang at 2:07 a.m. I blinked against the glow of the screen. Emma, cousin. I hesitated. No one calls at that hour unless it's something bad. I answered. Her voice was hushed but urgent. "Hey, I think you should come. Aunt May's not doing well tonight. She's asking for you." I was on the next flight out. I didn't even stop to think. I called my boss from the airport and asked for an extended leave, packed a suitcase in 20 minutes, left the cat with a neighbor. By noon, I was back in the town I swore I'd never live in again. The house was smaller than I remembered, but it still smelled like cinnamon and eucalyptus, just like Mom. She was in her room, weak but lucid. When she saw me, she smiled faintly. "I knew you'd come." Of course I came. I always came. From the time I was 12, I'd been the fixer. The one who stayed home when Dad left. The one who took Emma in when her parents couldn't. The one who paid for the new roof after the hailstorm. The one who never said no. Emma wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug. "It's so good to have you here. Mom's really been needing you. I've been trying to manage everything, but..." She trailed off, letting her voice crack just enough to be convincing. I believed her. Back then, I still did. I slept on the old couch in the living room that first night. The same couch I used to curl up on as a teenager, reading books and waiting for Mom to come home from her third shift. That was our bond, survival. I thought we were unbreakable. By day 3, I had fallen into a rhythm. Meds at 8 a.m., sponge baths by noon, small meals, gentle music, soft conversation. Emma had a full-time job, so I took over. I didn't mind. I told myself it was temporary, just until Mom got stronger. But the days became weeks, then months. I started noticing things, little things. Whispers behind doors when I walked into the kitchen. Conversations that abruptly stopped when I entered a room. Paperwork tucked away in drawers that used to be open to me. I chalked it up to stress. Emma was under pressure too. She'd always been the emotional one. Maybe she just needed space. Then I noticed the bank app. I had access to Mom's finances just to keep track of bills. But there were withdrawals I didn't recognize, odd amounts sent regularly to accounts I didn't know. When I asked Mom, she said, "Emma's been helping me with the bills. I trust her." I nodded, but my stomach knotted. Our relatives started dropping by less often. When they did come, they spoke to Emma like she was the center of gravity. I'd be standing right there, and they'd say things like, "Thank God someone's stepping up for May." Someone. I had given up my job, my apartment, my life. Still, I didn't say anything. I stayed quiet. I kept showing up. Because that's what good daughters do, and I was a good daughter, wasn't I? Late one night, I passed the hallway and heard Emma talking to someone on the phone. I paused. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. Honestly, it's almost too easy. I froze. My hand hovered near the doorknob. My breath caught in my throat. She laughed softly. "Yeah, once the paperwork's finalized, we'll be able to move forward. I mean, she can't stay here forever. I backed away, quietly. My heart thudded in my chest, louder than my footsteps. I went straight to the filing cabinet. The lock was new, not the same old one from years ago. It didn't matter. I had time. Emma had underestimated me. The next morning, I asked Mom gently, "Did you change anything on the house paperwork recently?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" I want to make sure everything's in order. Legally." She hesitated, a pause so subtle, so sharp, it cut through the air. "I signed some forms. Emma said they were for insurance." "Do you remember what they said?" "I didn't read them. I trust her." Trust. That word again. It kept echoing like a cruel joke. I didn't say another word, just smiled and nodded. But I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch with my old laptop and started digging. The title deed had changed 2 weeks before I arrived, to Emma's name. Without my knowledge, without discussion, while Mom was heavily medicated. I closed the laptop slowly. My hands were shaking. Mom was still alive, but the house was no longer hers, no longer ours. It was theirs. Or at least they thought it was. But I hadn't been quiet all these years because I was weak. I had been watching, learning, absorbing, and now I was ready. But the truth was, the woman I came back to save wasn't the same woman I left behind. She wasn't Mom anymore. Not really, not to me. The dining room glowed with soft yellow light. Candles flickered beside plates of roast chicken and green beans. Someone had made a slideshow, photos of Mom through the years, laughing, dancing, holding baby Emma, holding me. There was a cake, 2 tiers, frosted white with lilac flowers. I had made the reservation, ordered the food, cleaned the house. I even chose the playlist. Everyone showed up. Cousins, aunts, neighbors. Some I hadn't seen in years. They smiled at me, but their eyes didn't stay long. Emma stood by the head of the table, filling glasses, adjusting the flowers like she owned the place. And maybe she did, legally at least. Mom looked frail but content. Her eyes had that watery shine, like she was happy and overwhelmed all at once. I sat next to her, letting her hand rest on mine. I didn't expect much, just one night of peace. One night where I could pretend this was still my home, still my mother. Dinner passed with awkward pleasantries, clinks of forks and whispers between bites. I noticed no one really talked to me directly. They spoke around me, over me, like I was background noise. Then Emma stood up. She held her wineglass in one hand and tapped it gently with a spoon. The room quieted. A few people chuckled. Some lifted their phones. "I just want to say how grateful I am to everyone for coming," she began. "This house has always been the heart of our family, and tonight proves it. Aunt May, Mom, we love you so much." She leaned over and kissed Mom's cheek. My mother smiled, warm and unsuspecting. Then Emma turned to me. "And to my cousin," she said, pausing for effect. "I know it hasn't been easy for you, but it's time to move forward, time to let go. This house, it belongs to the next chapter, and that chapter doesn't include you." Silence. A plate clinked. Someone dropped a fork. My throat tightened, but no words came. She raised her glass again. "So let's toast to change, to new beginnings, and KTM." A few people lifted their glasses hesitantly. Some just looked down at their laps. My eyes scanned the room, searching for something, anything. Someone to say, "That's enough." Someone to say, "This isn't right." But they didn't. Even Mom didn't. She looked at her plate, and I knew. That moment, I knew everything was real. Not just the paperwork, Not just the signatures and the whispers, but the betrayal, the cold, deliberate choice to cut me out in front of a room full of people. My heart didn't break, it calcified. I stood slowly, no rush, no drama, just quiet. "Excuse me," I said, and walked away. No one stopped me, no one followed. Upstairs, the house felt colder. The lights were dim. I stepped into Mom's bedroom and sat on the edge of her bed. Her perfume still lingered in the air, faint but familiar. Mom entered a few minutes later, slower than usual. She didn't sit, just stood near the dresser, hands folded in front of her. "I didn't know she was going to say that," she whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked small. Not just physically, but diminished. Like her voice had been tucked away somewhere, folded into a drawer and forgotten. "But you didn't stop her either," I said. She didn't reply. "Why, Mom?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I didn't want to fight, not on my birthday." I waited. "She's been helping a lot, with the doctors, the insurance. She means well." "So did I." She flinched, barely, but it was there. "I know what this house meant to you," she continued, "but I couldn't handle the paperwork. She said she'd take care of it. I thought she'd include you." I almost laughed, but it came out as something else, a short exhale that didn't carry enough air. "I left everything," I said, "my job, my life. I came back when she called. Not you, her, because she said you needed me. She did that because I asked her to." That stopped me. "You asked her?" She nodded. "I didn't think you'd come if I called." My chest caved in. A silent implosion. "So you had her lie for you," I whispered. "I didn't think it mattered how you got here," she said. "Only that you came." We sat in silence. I thought about the birthday cards I made her as a kid. The time I sold my guitar to pay for her car repairs. The way I used to sleep by her door when she was sick, just to make sure she was breathing. It all felt like someone else's life now. Finally, I stood. "I understand now," I said quietly. She looked at me, eyes wide, hopeful. "But now you'll need to understand me." I walked past her, down the stairs, through the party still humming with low chatter and forced smiles. The night wasn't over, but my silence was. I left before sunrise. No note, no suitcase, just my purse, phone, and the house key left on the kitchen table like a ghost had been there. Emma told everyone I'd run away, said I couldn't handle the truth. She told our relatives. She packed up in the middle of the night, didn't even say goodbye. Guess not everyone's built for family. I let her believe that. For 3 days I was invisible. Unreachable, unbothered. I stayed at a small extended stay hotel 30 minutes away, under a different name. It was quiet, clean, and blessedly neutral. No family photos on the walls, no ghosts. I didn't waste a second. My first stop was Nathan's office, my old college friend, now a real estate and estate law attorney. We hadn't spoken in years, but when he heard my voice, he said, "Tell me everything." I did. He didn't interrupt, just took notes. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, "We may have something here." We dug into property records, medical documentation, transaction logs, and insurance paperwork. Piece by piece, a pattern emerged, a trail of signatures, notarizations, and shifts in ownership, all conveniently timed around Mom's weakest health windows. "Did your mother ever have a mental capacity assessment during this time?" Nathan asked. "No," I said. "She was in and out, sometimes lucid, sometimes not, but no formal test." "That might help us, especially if we can prove coercion." I paused. What if we find nothing? What if it's all airtight? He smiled. There's always a crack. On day 2, we found it. A single document, one line, filed 6 minutes after another, with conflicting timestamp data. Something only someone who'd worked in digital compliance would spot. Me, an oversight, a clerical glitch. But enough. Enough to open a legal inquiry, enough to create leverage, enough to remind them I hadn't left. I was moving in silence. By the 3rd day, Emma's stories were gaining traction. A few relatives texted me, "Are you okay? You really just gave up." I didn't answer. I was too busy collecting weapons. Because this wasn't war, not yet. This was reconnaissance. Back at the hotel that night, I stood by the window and watched the rain. I thought about the last time Emma called me crying 15 years ago. Her parents were divorcing. She had nowhere to go. I let her sleep on my floor for 3 months, bought her groceries, let her wear my clothes. I even covered her tuition deposit when she lost her scholarship. And now she had stolen the house our mothers grew up in. There's no word for that kind of betrayal. It lives in your bones, stains your DNA. But I didn't let it swallow me because I wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, I visited Mrs. Avery, our elderly neighbor who had lived next door since before I was born. Her voice cracked with age, but her memory was sharp. "Your mom told me once," she said, pouring me tea with shaky hands. She said, "No matter what happens, this house goes to my daughter." She said it plain, just like that. "Do you remember when she said it?" I asked. Mrs. Avery squinted. "Must have been last summer. She had her garden gloves on. We were standing between the hedges." I smiled. "Would you be willing to write that down? Sign it?" She didn't hesitate. "You bet I will." On the way back, my phone buzzed. A voice message. It was Jen, my old coworker from the firm I'd left when I moved back. We hadn't talked since I quit. "I was going through my old backups," she said. "Found something. That voice memo you sent me last year, the one where your mom was explaining the property taxes. I'd forgotten all about it. I'm forwarding it now. She says, pretty clearly, that she added you to the title because she wanted to protect the house. Just thought you'd want that." I sat down in the car, stunned. Evidence, unfiltered, uncoerced, and then another message. "Nathan, we've got a case," he said. "Not just probate fraud, possible elder coercion, misrepresentation of authority, and power of attorney abuse. I'm drafting the demand letter now." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. There was still a fight ahead, a messy one. But for the first time, I felt the scales tip, if only slightly, in my favor. Later that night, back at the hotel, I pulled out an old photo album from my bag, one Emma and I made together when we were kids. Stickers on every page, glitter pen captions, photos of birthdays, beach trips, Christmas mornings. She had been my sister before she became a threat, and I had loved her like one. I closed the album carefully, deliberately, then picked up my phone. I had allies now, and Emma, she had no idea what was coming. It was a Wednesday morning when the sign went up. Bright red letters, white background, staked perfectly into the front lawn, for sale. No fanfare, no announcement, just a quiet shift in the wind. Emma saw it before I did. She must have been doing her usual drive-by. She slammed her brakes, jumped out of the car, and stood there staring at it. I watched from my rental, parked across the street under the shade of an elm tree. I didn't move, didn't wave, just observed. A minute later, my phone started buzzing. "Emma, then again, voicemail, again, blocked. I sipped my coffee. She didn't know I was the one who called the realtor, that I had copies of the deed, Mom's original will, and a notarized witness statement from Mrs. Avery. She didn't know I had already submitted the voice memo to the legal team. She didn't know the title hadn't been transferred fully. The law requires full capacity and consent. Nathan was already talking with the probate court. The truth was, my name had never been removed. Co-ownership with survivorship rights. It meant I could sell the house without Emma's permission. She didn't even realize it until now. That was the crack. That was all I needed. Emma stood in the driveway, dialing again. Then she marched toward the sign like she was going to rip it out of the ground. But she hesitated, her hands balled into fists at her sides. She turned, scanned the street. She was looking for me. I stayed perfectly still. That night, she left a voicemail. "You're making a mistake. You think this is some kind of victory? You're ruining everything she built." I didn't respond, because I wasn't ruining anything. I was reclaiming what was already mine. A week later, the realtor held the first showing. I wasn't there. Nathan managed everything. The buyers were quiet, respectful, young couple expecting a baby. They asked about the garden, the backyard swing. I told them it came with history, not all of it good. While we waited for the appraisal, another piece of evidence surfaced. A handwritten will, found in a kitchen drawer, tucked behind old takeout menus and expired coupons. Dated 2 months before Mom fell into steady decline. In her handwriting, signed and witnessed. It named me as the sole heir of the house and its contents. No mention of Emma. We submitted it for handwriting analysis. Results came back conclusive, authentic. Her final wishes, clear. Emma found out the same day the buyers made their offer. She showed up at Nathan's office, screaming, accused him of fraud, said I forged everything, threatened to go to the police, and she did, which was her biggest mistake. Because once the police got involved, they opened everything. Every transaction, every signature, every bank transfer. The financial trail she thought she'd buried came crawling into daylight. Her fury backfired. My silence had baited her into exposing herself. The investigation started quietly, but it grew. The local paper ran a headline 2 weeks later. Family dispute over inheritance sparks legal review. It didn't mention names, but everyone knew. Emma disappeared for a while after that. Meanwhile, I prepared for something else. Mom's 1-year memorial. No invitations, no fanfare. Just a few folding chairs, a white cloth-covered table, a framed photo, and a speaker connected to my phone. I held the ceremony in the backyard, the place where she used to prune roses, sip lemonade, hum old jazz songs. I scattered petals around the base of the oak tree and placed her favorite scarf around the photo frame. Then I pressed play. Her voice filled the yard, the voice memo, clear, calm, warm. "If something happens to me," she said, "I want the house to stay with my daughter. She's the one who's always been there, not Emma. I love Emma, but no. This is for my girl." I looked up at the branches, sunlight flickering through the leaves. "I kept quiet," I said aloud, "because I thought silence was loyalty, but silence was permission, and I won't give it anymore." I reached for the small black folder on the table and opened it. Inside was a check from the house sale. Next to it, a copy of legal paperwork establishing the May Henderson Memorial Scholarship Fund, a scholarship for young women who gave up too much to support their families. who put everyone else first and never got to choose themselves. This wasn't revenge. This was legacy, and it would bear her name, not Emma's. Later, as I packed the chairs and folded the table, I felt a light breeze brush my cheek, like a whisper, a nod, maybe forgiveness, maybe freedom, or maybe just the end of something old, and the beginning of something only I could build. The first article appeared on a local gossip site. The headline read, "Disinherited Daughter Sells Family, Home Out from Under Grieving Cousin." The photo they used was old, me walking out of a coffee shop, hair pulled back, no makeup. I looked angry. They made sure of that. Then came the social media posts, anonymous accounts, comments on neighborhood pages, threads accusing me of manipulation, abandonment, betrayal. Emma had found her audience, and she played them like a violin. She stole the house from an old woman. She kicked her own mother out. Emma was the only one taking care of the family. At first, I didn't respond. Nathan advised against it. "Stay quiet," he said. "Let the evidence speak." But it wasn't easy. I watched as my name was dragged, reshaped into something cruel and foreign. Co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, confused. A friend even asked if I had really forged a will. I almost cracked. Then the blog post dropped, not from me, not from anyone I knew. It was titled, "The Woman Who Was Asked to Leave Her Own House and What She Did Next." Written by a local journalist who'd heard whispers, done her own digging, and interviewed some of the people Emma had tried to manipulate. The article painted the full picture of me giving up my life, moving home, caring for Mom for 8 years, handling the bills, the breakdowns, the endless responsibilities. It even included a quote from Mrs. Avery, the neighbor. "I watched that girl carry her mother up the stairs when May couldn't walk," she said, "and now they're calling her a thief?" The piece went viral, locally at least. Suddenly the tide shifted. People began commenting in my defense. This is why I don't trust one-sided stories. "Emma sounds like a gaslighter." "Glad she got the house. Sounds like she earned it." I didn't celebrate, but I slept. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up with my heart pounding. A few days later, I received a letter, no return address. Inside, just a single page, neat handwriting, careful punctuation. "I owe you an apology. I saw what happened at the party. I saw what she did. And I said nothing because I was afraid. But I've been in your shoes. Years ago, Emma did something similar to me. Different context. Same manipulation. I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner. It wasn't signed. But I recognized the handwriting. A second cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Not because I forgave, not yet, but because truth, even anonymous, still mattered. Emma, of course, went quiet. The investigation hadn't resulted in criminal charges yet, but the damage was done. Her reputation was tainted. She lost her job at a real estate firm when they uncovered discrepancies in her internal paperwork. Quiet firings always speak louder than public ones. She posted once more, a vague message on Facebook. Some people will lie their way into a legacy, others will earn one the hard way. No likes, no comments. I didn't engage. I was already gone. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I didn't take interviews, didn't return calls from podcasts or reporters. I declined a spot on a morning show. Instead, I built a small platform of my own, quiet, intentional. A blog called Second Daughters, a space for women like me. Those who were invisible in their own families, who were told to give and then blamed for finally taking something back. I posted stories, advice, legal tips, mental health resources. I didn't use my full name, just an initial and a voice. And the voice grew. Emails came in, hundreds of them. From strangers who said, "I thought it was just me." From mothers, daughters, even sons. I didn't offer therapy. I wasn't a professional, but I listened. And in listening, I healed. One night, months after the sale closed, I stood in my new apartment, small but mine, and stared out the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. I sat on the floor with an old shoebox. Inside, letters from Mom, birthday cards, a pressed flower from her garden. And I cried, not because I was angry, but because I finally wasn't. Because grief, when it's clean, feels like oxygen. Because letting go had stopped being an act of surrender and had become a declaration of boundaries, of worth, of survival. I wasn't the girl who ran when called anymore. I was the woman who stayed silent until the storm passed, and then rebuilt the world she deserved, quietly, deliberately, powerfully. I moved 3 hours south to a quiet coastal town no one in my family had ever mentioned. The kind of place with more seagulls than streetlights. My apartment was small, just 1 bedroom and a balcony that overlooked the ocean. I could hear the waves from bed. No one knew my address, not Emma, not the relatives who'd stayed silent. I changed my number, kept the new one private. Only a handful of people had it. Nathan, Jen, Mrs. Avery, people who'd shown up for me when I had nothing left to give. The first few weeks felt like exhale, long, slow, and unfamiliar. No one called to ask for help. No one expected me to drop everything. No one needed me. And for the first time, that didn't feel like rejection. It felt like rest. I started walking in the mornings, just me, coffee, and sand. I'd bring a notebook, sit on a bench, and write whatever came to mind. Some days it was angry, some days soft, but always mine. I set rules. No returning to my hometown, not even for holidays. No replying to texts that began with guilt. No reopening doors I had already closed. The boundaries weren't just physical, they were emotional, mental, sacred. When people asked, "What happened with your family?" I simply said, "I grew out of them." They usually nodded, they usually understood. I picked up a part-time job at a bookstore. It paid little, but the owner let me stack the poetry section however I wanted, and sometimes left fresh-baked cookies in the break room. She never asked about my past. I liked that. One evening, while shelving a shipment of used titles, I found a beat-up book of essays on family and belonging. I took it home and read it cover to cover. That night, an idea started forming. Not a memoir, not another trauma tell-all. Just conversations. I launched a podcast called Chosen. The premise was simple. Stories from people who built families from scratch. Friends who became siblings. Mentors who filled parental roles. Communities born not from blood, but from bond. I recorded the first episode in my closet, surrounded by coats and blankets to soften the sound. My voice shook a little, but it felt right. Within 2 weeks, I had listeners. Within 2 months, emails started pouring in. This made me feel less alone. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. My therapist recommended this, and it's helping me heal. I didn't go viral, but I resonated, and resonance was enough. I joined a local writing group that met every Thursday night in the back room of a coffee shop. That's where I met him. Michael, divorced, mid-40s, taught English at a high school nearby, wrote quiet, aching short stories about things that never quite worked out but still mattered. He sat next to me during critiques and always brought an extra pen. I told myself not to get close, not again. But he listened. He didn't fix. He didn't save. He just showed up. One night after group, he walked me to my car and asked, "Would you want to grab dinner sometime? No pressure, just food, conversation." I said yes, just food, just conversation. Until it became more, slowly, carefully, no fireworks, no declarations, just the steady unraveling of fear, replaced by something calm, kind. Months passed, then one afternoon, while cleaning out a small wooden box I hadn't touched since the move, I found it. A folded envelope, old, yellowing at the edges. Inside, a letter, written in Mom's handwriting. "Sweetheart, if you're reading this, I probably didn't get the timing right. I wasn't always good with words, but I tried with this. I just want you to know something. I saw everything. I saw you taking care of me, even when I didn't say thank you. I saw how much you gave and how little you asked for in return. And I need you to hear this. You are the only thing I never regretted. You are the only thing I'm proud of. Forgive me for being silent when I should have been loud. I love you, always." I sat on the floor and read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not the bitter kind, not the shaking, silent grief I used to carry. These tears were different, like rain after a long drought, like permission not to go back, but to go forward. That night, I read the letter aloud on my podcast. It became the most listened to episode I ever released. Because healing doesn't always come from the people who hurt you. Sometimes it comes in the echo, in the silence you chose to break, in the life you chose to live after them.